Prayer reflection. Thank you. Do you roll call, please?
Pat Rooney?
Here.
Alan Ward?
Here.
John Maston?
Here.
Kathy Cox?
Here.
Nicole Cohen?
Here. And we'll forego the pledge if you don't mind, since we just did it at the last meeting. I would never forego it, but we've already done it, so. All right, do I have a motion to review and accept the agenda for this session?
So moved. Second.
Kathy Cox?
Yes.
Pat Rooney?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
Alan Ward?
Yes.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes. We have one action item, the approval of the Lake Havasu Unified School District Number 1 Employee Benefit Trust document. Mr. Murray.
Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended the Lake Havasu Unified School District Governing Board approve an updated Lake Havasu Unified School District Employee Benefit Trust document, replacing the previous version approved in 1986. The trust document was created in 1986 when the Lake Havasu Unified School District Employee Benefit Trust was put into place. That document has been in place since that time. A joint subcommittee comprised of EBT Board of Trustee members and the Lake Havasu Unified School District Governing Board members met twice on May 30th, 2017 and June 14th, 2017 to create an updated trust document, after which it was sent to legal counsel for the EBT and to the legal counsel for the district. The attorneys were asked to work together to review the document and make changes as appropriate. On September 28, 2017, the EBT Board of Trustees met and voted to approve the attached version of the trust document. The Lake Havasu Unified School District Governing Board is asked to review and approve the document as well. After approval, the document will be available to EBT members online, and a copy will be kept in the district's business office.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve 3.1?
So moved. Second.
I have something I would like to say.
Okay.
Well, let me take.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Good.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's under Article 4, Item 4.02, the composition of the EBT Board. And it's the next to the last sentence of that paragraph, which reads, one trustee, but no more than one of the voting trustees may be an employee of the school district. Because the EBT exists for the employees of the district, I think that word should be shall be an employee of the school district.
Well, I respectfully disagree, and we went through this when we sat in our committee, and we all agreed, including Carrie.
And what was the reason?
The reason is that it's not appropriate for there to be so much influence on this independent, this board that's making these decisions. It's not in the district's best interest, meaning all the employees, all the staff, to have such influence, because it makes it appear that maybe people could be making decisions based on what's best for them instead of what's best for the whole district.
But that's why there's would be only one employee on the board. And that one employee could hardly have that kind of influence for himself.
But there has been kind of this, and bear with me here because it's been ongoing, for well over a year. But the idea is that this EBT, the Employee Benefit Trust, is completely independent of this board.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you put a voting member from this board on that board, now it's not completely independent of this board.
Okay, but perhaps it should be a voting member from this board that should not be on it, but there should certainly be an employee on the EBT board.
Well, we do have an employee.
But it says may, so at some time in the future, we could not have an employee with the verb may. It should be shall, was what I said.
I'm going to disagree with you as well, and I'm going to ask you a clarifying question. Do you believe that the EBT, with the expansion of the board would not take into account the best interest of the employees that it serves.
No, I do not, but you need a voice from a staff member on, right there at the meetings.
So-
Otherwise, how do you get the voice of the employees?
They attend the meetings, they put their input in.
They don't
If
attend the
we,
meetings.
if,
They do.
Oh, I've been to them, there's no one there but Karen
but
and
if,
Monica.
but if we have a forced representation, which is what you're asking for,
No,
shall is a forced representation, then you force the employees to come up with representation. You don't say, have an election and elect somebody. If there's nobody available, we're going to force you to put somebody on. I don't think we'll ever not have that representation, but I think that the language needs to be able to support if that ever actually happens.
well, I don't think the circumstances you're talking about would ever happen where someone would be forced
Then-
to be on.
Then what's
I
the
think
problem?
we're getting bogged down like in semantics, and I think, and I can understand how Kathy feels that, just changing that ensures that a member of the staff will always be on that, where maybe that's not at all the case. And I don't think it would ever be, if you put that in there, shall, that you're forcing anyone. You're just guaranteeing that this large group of people that have really a big interest in the success of this thing will have representation. Where, I've always, you start getting into this may and shall. The shall ensures that that's going to happen. The may doesn't ensure anything.
The shall does in fact force, because at the point in time where maybe Carrie is no longer on the board as an employee, and maybe she doesn't want to be, maybe there isn't somebody who wants to be on the trust board.
You have a staff of, 300 and some odd people. I don't think you'll ever have a situation.
Total staff is over 500.
Okay, over 500. That's, the CBT thing was set up to look out for the interest of the staff. With a large staff like that, over 500, I don't think you're ever going to be in a situation where you're not going to get people, particularly the quality of people that you have in education.
But education doesn't have anything to do with medical insurance, which is why we found ourselves in the problem that we were in. And the shall and the may almost makes the point that Kathy said when she claims nobody shows up. People were certainly worried about their insurance going up, and they sure came to a couple of meetings, but they weren't showing up at every single meeting. Now, there were people that did show up. They weren't empty, because I've been to all but one or two, I think, recently. But the point is
I
that...
think a lot of times people don't show up because of the length of the meetings and a whole lot of other dynamics there. But the fact of
Well, I
the matter is...
understand that the length of the meetings have been extremely long, but that's because for 30 years, you did not have a board that was running the meetings. You had a consultant that was running the meetings and was not making decisions that were in the best interest of this staff. And because you didn't have somebody that understood what questions to ask, because nobody on that board had a medical background, the meetings were simple. Yes, yes, yes. We want this, we want this. I mean, if I could get 100% coverage on my medical insurance, Pat, I would take it in a heartbeat. So I don't see what there really is to fight about. These are
We're not
public
fighting,
meetings.
we're just having a discussion.
Well, okay, I'm sorry, I used the wrong word.
The semantic issue...
I mean over the word of shall
Exactly.
may.
Okay, but
Right.
Kathy's presented her point of view. I present my point of view. I respect you guys. We're
Sure.
not fighting over
I
anything.
didn't mean to use the word fighting. I meant disagree over the word. That's what I meant. I'm sorry I
Okay.
used the word fighting.
Well, I'm not going to go into counseling or anything.
I'm glad
over
to
it.
hear that.
But,
That's good. It's expensive.
exactly.
I understand Kathy's point, I really do. But the problem I have is we use the term may on all of these appointments. It doesn't say, doesn't say anywhere there shall be appointed to it. May is the consistent word. And, you know, like you say, it's semantics. But the question also comes up, if we suddenly need a member, and the most qualified member is a roofer out here in town, then we should put the most qualified member on the board. It shouldn't matter whether they're an employee, it shouldn't matter. The most qualified person should be selected. And that's why the may is used consistently throughout that paragraph, so that you will be selecting the best people, regardless of what their background or position is. So I mean, I don't have a problem. I understand the shall, I understand directing that the employees have a part in it. But the other side of it is, if a more qualified applicant is available, that more qualified applicant should be selected.
I believe that the statute that governs that also says no more than may be or shall be. So there is a statutorial directive on how that got put together. It's not something where the committee guessed at what they were doing.
Well, may I ask each of you, is it your intent that there shall always be a staff member on the EBT board, even if that word is may, because you understand how important it is to have input and a continuous feedback loop from the staff to the EBT board, which will not exist unless there is a staff member on the board. So do you all intend to see that you understand the wisdom of having a staff member? I'm asking each one of you, do you think that's the wiser course, or do you really don't think it's important at all?
Well, I think that by forcing the district to go to...
There's no forcing. You're not going to force anyone.
It would be really nice if I could finish my thought.
You go ahead, and then I
Okay.
have something to say.
Okay. We did force the district to make these public meetings so that, in fact, the staff could attend these meetings that they were never allowed to attend in 30 years. So they are able to give their input, and that will always be because they are now public meetings from now on. As far as having to have a staff member on the board, the whole purpose of the board is to provide benefits for the staff, the best benefits that we can afford for the staff. So I don't think it matters if there's a staff member on it, if the purpose of the board is to provide those. I think it's more important to make sure you have people that understand health insurance and how complicated everything is, and being experts in that field, which educators aren't experts in that field. But I think that they're represented by the fact that they can come and they can sit right here in front of the board if they see something on an agenda, which, you know, everything's very clearly posted about, you know, what's on the agenda. They can come here and say, we don't approve of this, or we don't like this. But I think when you say shall, you know, we ask our staff of a lot, and we don't know what healthcare is going to look like. And so these may continue to be long meetings as they go through all the options, and there may be a point where somebody doesn't want to. They have their health insurance, they have their wellness center, they're well taken care of in this district, so why would we force an employee to sit on the board?
Forcing the school district to hold the EBT meetings publicly is a totally different thing from saying we would be forcing a staff member to be on the board, because I assure you, with 500 people available, there will be someone to do it. Carrie, because of her experience on the EBT for all of these years, I've noticed at the last EBT meetings, she is the only one when our new contractor asks questions. Why did you decide to do it this way? She can answer every question. Through experience, we all gain knowledge, even if that insurance is not our background. Through experience, we can gain an awful lot of knowledge. And not that Carrie would be that person every single, in the future, but to not have a voting member on the EBT board representing the staff, I think is not a wise move.
Well, can I answer the question you asked a minute ago? I can tell you for myself, I can't talk for the whole board, but if two candidates were sitting at that table, one was a staff member and one wasn't, I would pick the one that was most qualified. I would consider that one was a staff member, but I would pick the most qualified.
But couldn't the staff member be the most qualified?
Yes,
Okay.
if they were the
Okay.
most qualified.
Okay,
But if they weren't, I wouldn't pick them.
I understand. But that's another issue. That is that if that's why this word should be shall, because we would always have to have a staff member on the board, and then you would have a different pool to pick for the next member. It wouldn't
See,
be a staff member.
you're saying we should always have a staff member,
That's right.
even if they're not the most qualified.
Right.
But over time, they can, just like Carrie became the most qualified. She is very qualified. And for all I know, anyway, that's a whole other issue. We don't even have a procedure for selecting a staff member. Anyway, and that's another reason we need the word shall, because we won't just have this pool of people out there applying to be on there, including a staff member sitting out there. The staff member can easily just get left out. If it's a staff member voting on the board and they attend the meetings and they are organized and they make sure the schools get reports, it's a necessary, it's just very necessary, I believe, to have the word shall in here. It's necessary to have a staff member.
Why?
I've just
Well,
You haven't explained why it's necessary, and the reason that I asked that is because I have no connection to this district, and I fought tooth and nail to make it an open public so all the staff members could go.
Because they have confidence in Carrie. That's why and there is no longer an insurance committee. We used to, when I first started attending these meetings, there were at least 2 or 3.
It's been against the law since 1983 to have the closed meetings. 1983.
No, I'm talking about the ones I've attended in the last year that have been open. When I first started, there were 2 or 3 staff members. I think 1 or 2 of them were from the old insurance committee. Well, we no longer have representatives. We don't have an insurance committee anymore. At least they're not attending the meetings.
They can watch the meetings on the video. They don't have to rely on third party. Do you realize what was happening, Kathy? The meetings were held in private.
You've already said that, and I've already agreed with that.
But you're saying somehow that the staff doesn't have an opportunity to see what's going on.
I think it's totally different to have people here who are insurance committee members, who you get more of a feeling of participation. You can ask a question. It's a whole other way of operating.
It sure is. You're right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's inefficient. It's a waste of time.
Well, I disagree with you.
Why was the
What
EBT
does the
set
union
up?
have to do with anything?
To
Why was
provide
the EBT
insurance.
set up?
To provide benefits to the staff members.
Okay, and I don't think it's uncommon in any organization that the group that's going to benefit has representation, insured representation. And I think because that's what it was set up for. And so all of a sudden what you're doing is you're saying, you're ensuring that group that, look, you're going to be a part of this that was set up to look out for your interests. And I mean, you got 5 other members, or it could be up to 7, and they're going to bring all that other together. But even at the state university levels where they even have the student represented there because it's affecting them. Now, these kids going to college, 18 to 22, do they know anything about that? But it is not uncommon for boards to have a member of the group that, that it was set up to look out for represented on that staff. And all Kathy's saying is, what we're going to do is make sure that this takes place. And they act as a spokesperson for that group when issues come up.
Can I interject something here? Because this went through a committee from the EBT, and this went through a committee from the governing board. It went to the lawyers. It was already voted on by the EBT board, which means you voted on this, Pat.
Yeah, I know I voted on it, but she's brought up a legitimate issue.
Okay. And so here we are, we're at the last little measure of this, and if we change this, does this now have to go back down to the EBT board?
It sure does. Can I interject something? Our EBT board is not, employee benefit trust boards are not created to provide benefits. They're provided to make sure that the public funds are purchasing responsible benefits that the district can afford, that the city can afford. It's a responsibility to make sure that we're doing our due diligence for the benefits that are provided to the employees and making sure that those are vetted correctly. Our new trust document follows the guidelines of the Arizona revised statute that says that, in fact, we're going one further, because the revised statute says that if you have a member of, an employee or a member of the school board on the trust, that we must do something in addition to that, meaning add more people to the trust, to make sure that it is not going to be, so that the EBT is not going to be controlled by employees of the district. The EBT is not supposed to be specifically run by or influenced by employees that are sitting on the EBT to make sure that the benefits are what that employee wants to see. That's not the case at all. That's the responsibility of the people that are coming in from the community and have experience on looking at these things. And again, and part of the reason why this trust document has been rewritten was because it has never been reviewed and rewritten in the last 30 years. So there have been a lot of things that have happened during these last 30 years that perhaps shouldn't have happened. For example, maybe in 30 years, all unanimous votes except for maybe 3 or 4 meetings. And you look back at all the 30 years of meetings, there's not a lot of meetings that don't have unanimous. And so what purpose is it of, having board meetings if everybody's going to agree, even if they don't agree? There's just so much more than having an employee of the district on this board, because employees of this district, unless they're teaching insurance and regulations and premiums and all those things in their classroom, what they're interested in is making sure that they're getting the most benefits that they can get for all of the employees. And that may not always be the best situation for the use of the public funds.
Well, I think Carrie is a good example of someone who has been a steward, not for herself, but for the district. And the fact that there is only one staff member allowed to be on here, there's no way this one staff member could have that much influence just to have benefits for herself or for what the rest of the school district wants. She just would never, or he would never have that much power or influence to be only one member on the board. I want to remind you all what you all know. How do organizations run? How do they get that change? There's really, really good communication. When you have someone who represents the staff members on the board, that is the person that people call and say, were you aware that this was happening at the wellness center? Were you aware that this was going on with the co-pays and the doctors in town and whatever? And because there's someone sitting on as a staff member, they have one person that they can contact and tell. And then she can follow through and try to do something about it.
And I don't agree with that, Kathy, respectfully, because everyone that works at this school district is an adult, and they're all responsible for learning what they're supposed to be learning about their insurance benefits and what's happening. And part of the reason why we had a large majority of the people,
their experiences.
excuse me, but and with all due respect to Carrie, because I think she's done a stalwart job of being part of the EBT EBT board for the last 14 years, but even in the 14 years that Carrie was part of this, there was such miscommunication and lack thereof that if that was the case, and clearly it was, as an employee of the school district, why didn't she raise her hand and say that there was a problem? I was at the last meeting where we voted on changing our investment advisor, and hearing conversations of people that had been on this board in the past said, we really should have made these changes years ago. So if that's the case, why didn't she do that? Why wouldn't anybody do it?
Because it was controlled, the whole operation was controlled, as you know, by one person. That's in the past. Carrie did not have the voice
No,
to
again,
do something
according
like
to the
that.
Arizona revised statutes, and the statutes for the state of Arizona do not say that there must be or that there shall be an employee on an EBT board. It does not say that. It says that if there is, you have to make considerations and add another member of the community to that
But I'm
board.
not sure that because the statute doesn't specify that a school board doesn't have the authority to do it on its own.
And again, if the wording is may, it does not prevent any employee from being on that board. And even if there is and you say that
That's
there's
why
over
I'm
500
asking a
people.
commitment from every board
Well,
member
and I don't
here
think that that's fair for you to do
during
that.
our tenure, that you would, during your tenure, Nicole, you will make sure that there is a staff member on the board. John?
This
I'm
school
asking
board
you.
has-
I will commit to it
Thank you.
if the staff member that's applying is the most qualified person.
The most-
Otherwise, I will not do it.
But then you're putting that person
I
in just
just think it's a moot point. I don't know
Yes.
that, I
already been
don't,
voted
when
on.
is Carrie's our,
Her ticker starts now, doesn't it?
right. I mean, she's got 6 years now, right?
Right.
2 3-year terms.
Can we call for the vote?
Oh, there's no other questions? That was it? Oh, sure. Let's call for the vote, Carrie.
Pat Rooney?
No.
John Maston?
Yes.
Kathy Cox?
No,
Ellen Ward?
Yes.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes. Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We'll need signatures after a few roll call. John Maston?
Yes.
Kathy Cox?
yes.
Pat Rooney?
Yes.
Ellen Ward?
Yes.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes.
Thank you.